All right, well, we'll keep admitting, folks. It's top of the hour on my clock. So thank you, everyone, for joining Fire Chat Friday. I'm Samantha Storms, the Division Chief for External Affairs for the BLM Fire Program here at the National Interagency Fire Center in Boise, Idaho. And really excited to have my friends and colleagues from the National Wildfire Coordinating Group here with us today. I'm going to kick it over to Katie Wood to get us started and introduce her team.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. And good afternoon. My name is Katie Wood, and I'm the National Wildfire Coordinating Group Program Manager. And on behalf of NWCG, we're super honored and thankful to be here today. So thanks again for the Bureau of Land Management for hosting us. I'm also accompanied by my two colleagues, Toni Suminski Walter and Annie Benoit. And so the intent of today's conversation is we're going to be talking about some exciting new updates to our Incident Performance and Training Modernization and position task books, our next generation position task books. So with that being said, just kind of a little bit of an update. We always like to kick off these presentations to share a little bit about the role that NWCG plays here at the national office. Sometimes it can be a little bit confusing between the varying different governance bodies, but when you think about NWCG, really the intent or our role is to create interoperable standards within the wildland fire community. On the screen, you're going to see a number of logos there at the bottom. There's 10 different primary member agencies, and we actually have 3 associate member agencies as well. So we've got NASA, the Office of Wildland Fire, and the Weather Service that also serve as our associate members. Within NWCG, we report to an executive board, and that executive board is comprised of the members of those member agencies that you see there on the bottom of the screen. The intent or the role of the executive board is really to provide that strategic direction. And then within NWCG staff and our committee structure, which I'll talk about here in a moment, we really implement the operational side of things where we develop those standards again to allow for that interoperability moving forward. Some of the things we like to highlight when it comes to NWCG and how we operate is we work in a collaborative and consensus manner, and the key part of that is consensus. So some people say things take a long time to go through NWCG, and really when you think about that consensus piece, when you're talking about a standard moving forward, we have to make sure that all of those member agencies agree to whatever standard that is before we move forward with it. So it can take a lot of time for us to move something forward, to make sure that we're all on the same page, again, for that mission of interoperability. One other distinction I will make about our executive board is that we develop standards and not policy. It's up to each member agency to actually adopt that standard into policy. And again, that standard serves as the baseline. So oftentimes you'll have an agency adopted into policy, and certain agencies may add additional requirements to the baseline standard. But in theory, we're all on the same page when we move forward for anything related to wildland fire standards. We like to say in NWCG that we are really a governance structure that is based on the foundation of the field. And so we operate with a pretty elaborate system. We have 17 committees and 94 subgroups that really focus on developing standards for their functional area and of expertise within wildland fire. So this can be anything from personal protective equipment that we develop to how we collect standards. And today's topic, how we actually develop training. So there's about 1,200 different individuals that help support this, and our committees and our subgroups in theory mirror the member agencies of the executive board and operate in the exact same manner, meaning from a consensus-based model as we move forward with standards development. So again, we really like to just kind of frame it up because sometimes there's confusion about how NWCG operates, and we are a bit unique compared to other governance structures. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Toni, who's going to dive into the meat of the conversation today, focusing on the incident performance and training modernization. Over to you, Toni.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Hey, everybody. My name again is Toni Suminski Walter, and I am the project manager for the Incident Performance and Training Modernization here at the NWCG. So one of the things that we, as Katie mentioned, the NWCG Executive Board provides the leadership and direction to NWCG. Several years ago, the executive board tasked NWCG to evaluate the NWCG training and qualification system to find efficiencies and improve effectiveness. Since then, NWCG has been working on updating systems to support the NWCG mission. We started with a focus on the website, the publications area, and committees. So on the NWCG website, it's now easier to access information, and it consolidates information for basically a one-stop shop for all things NWCG. It's recently just gone through a migration and still a little bit under construction, but still has all of the information you are used to seeing, maybe just in a different location, but it's definitely upgraded and modernized. Highly recommend you go take a look at it. In the publications area, we've established a comprehensive publications catalog, and that allows us to make updates much more efficiently and ensures the focus on the standards. And then with working with our committees with regard to organization and processes, we, as well as creating position and course stewards and incorporating course steering committees where appropriate. We know that these items will never be 100% done, as we'll always continue to want to find improvements and make updates, but the bulk of the work up front has been accomplished for these particular efforts. Now we're focusing on transitioning to building that performance-based training and qualification system for the over 130 plus NWCG positions. The outcome we're striving for with this effort is to create a system which supports not only trainees, but also qualified individuals. A system where a trainee can move through efficiently while still receiving the appropriate experience to perform competently in the position while on an incident. Also, a system which supports qualified individuals who can easily access new information post-qualification, and as evaluators, be able to consistently evaluate trainees to the incident position standards. The specific goals to support the outcome include transitioning to that performance-based system, and that's through the creation of a performance support package, where the new incident position standards are the anchor point for all other performance support tools, including things like job aids, how-to videos, formal training, but most importantly, the integration of those standards into the next-gen PTB. As we move towards this performance-based system, we'll be moving as much learning as is appropriate to on the job. Where formal training is deemed necessary due to the complexity of a position, we'll be focused on only necessary and relevant position-specific training to help reduce the current redundancies that are in the system, as well as removing barriers to qualification. Finally, as we analyze each position, we'll be looking at ways to modernize performance support tools to improve accessibility and also to focus learning strategies which will improve skill development. This slide really shows the three sides that contribute to the development of a professional wildland firefighter, manager, or responder. On the day job knowledge side, this is what is provided by your agency or department and includes agency-specific policies and procedures. Down on the bottom, you as the individual, you're bringing your own skills and expertise that maybe you've learned outside of your position, and then NWCG brings the incident position and qualification standards to that side of the triangle. Looking at our traditional model of training qualification, we're all familiar with it. It's linear and a little bit siloed without incident position standards on how to perform in the position. Knowledge was really only limited to what was presented in a one-time attendance to a training course, if training was even available for that position. Any guidance on how the position tasks were performed were limited to the classic PTB, the information that you may have received if you did attend training that one time, and the evaluator on incident. Once the task book was initiated, you go on training assignments where your evaluator provided guidance based on their own experiences, but without the guidance of incident position standards to help be an effective evaluator and a consistent evaluator. After completing a number of training assignments, you then become qualified in the position where there isn't a method for post-qualification learning or an ability to update any new information that may impact you while you're performing on incident in that specific position. So the new model of training and qualification, looking really at that performance-based system. This is a great summary. This slide is a great summary of what IPTM will bring to each NWCG incident position. In the circle, if you start up in the upper right-hand shaded green area, that remove or review performance support package, that's where we start talking about the components of what is in the performance support package. That's what's listed over on the right. The incident position description, the IPD, is the what of the position. The new incident position standards will explain how to do the position and are created in conjunction and directly from the IPD. The incident position standards aren't supposed to be so detailed that everybody has to do the task the same way. It really just follows a step-by-step process to the task completion so that we actually have a standard in how the overall job is performed. The information is then used to help develop the next gen PTB through an analysis of those incident position standards. And the SMEs that we bring in, the subject matter experts for each position, they actually evaluate each of the standards to inform which tasks should be in the next gen PTB, as well as help determine which performance support product is absolutely essential. Understanding that OJT, on the job training, is the most effective method of learning. Once the performance support package is reviewed, then the trainee completes the training support products that have been developed, whether, again, that job aid, a how-to video, maybe it's formal training if the position is complex enough. Then they complete as many assignments as is needed, and then they're evaluated for certification. The goal with this model is to be able to produce or introduce new information even after somebody is qualified. If something changes that impacts a specific position, we're able to integrate that new information in real time, mostly real time, and it's relevant. So where have we been and where are we going? In May of 2023, we kicked off formally 10 positions part of this effort. And so you'll see those here on the screen. And looking at those, we're in the middle of most of these after analysis and looking at how we're designing and developing those performance support tools. I'll leave this on the slide or on the screen for just a second, but really want to focus on that we're trying to look at a bottom-up approach as well as a diversity of functional areas as we move through this process. Looking at 2024, at the end of this month, we're going to be kicking off 16 additional positions to which we have 60 plus subject matter experts traveling into Boise here at the end of April, and they're going to be working on the analysis of all of these positions. The focus of that analysis is to derive and develop those incident position standards that I mentioned earlier, and really look at those standards to determine what needs to go into the PTB and how we best support the learning for each of those tasks. We can't do this without our subject matter experts. And so I encourage you to go online, check out our website. There's a little QR code here that you can also obviously use to get to our SME button, and I'll show that here in just a second. But we can't do this effort without you. We already have SMEs for the 2023 and 2024 positions, but we are continually recruiting for more subject matter experts to come share your knowledge and expertise with us. This is really from the bottom up or from the field to where NWCG can support what the field needs. Again, we're looking at that bottom up approach, so maybe the higher positions may not be on the list for 2025 yet, but still put your name in. We'll be going through those lists as we move forward with selecting those positions for future endeavors. So again, this is what it looks like if you go to that nwcg.gov/IPTM, and you can click on that, are you interested in being involved as an SME? And that will take you to a form that you can fill out and add your name to the list. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Annie Benoit, who can talk more in depth about the Next Gen Position Taskbook.
Hey, thanks, Tony. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay. How's that? Can you see my screen?
Yep,
Okay.
we got it, Annie.
All right, thanks. All right, Annie Benoit, I'm the Training Development Program Manager, as Katie mentioned earlier, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes to chat with you a little bit
or focus on the next generation position task books. So this next slide is just a quick animated run through of what the next gen PTB looks like. So we all have a common understanding of kind of what I'm referencing throughout this presentation. So the next gen PTB has 3 parts. The main section, which includes the signature page, initiation block, verification, and agency certification, followed by the evaluation table, and then the evaluation record. So this is the signature page. This information is really the same, very similar as what we have right now in our classic PTBs. It's just consolidated onto one initial page at the beginning of the task book. This is the evaluation table, so the real meat of the next gen PTB, where the trainees are evaluated. So we're going to dive into this in a little more detail later in the presentation, but do want to point out the ratings at the top of the page. That's one of the main differences between the classic PTB and these next gen PTBs that we'll be rolling out. And so you can see kind of at the top of the page, we have that NO, no opportunity to perform the task, followed by a does not meet the standard, M meets the standard, and E exceeds the standard. So no longer asking evaluators to initial whether a trainee has completed a task or not, but asking for the evaluator to rate the trainee with one of those ratings on how they performed that task in the training assignment. So more to come on that in a minute. And then this is all followed by the actual evaluation record. And again, the evaluation record in the next gen PTB is very similar to the way they look now in the classic PTB evaluation record. One of the main differences here is we've included space. You can see at the bottom that block for remarks on individual performance, because we are now requiring evaluators to give written feedback to trainees when they've rated them with a does not meet the standards for performance in the position rating, just to kind of help with that constructive feedback and have some dialogue between the evaluator and the trainee on what the trainee can do to improve performance for their next assignment. And I'll get to more of that in a minute as well. So just a note here that we are going to make these fillable PDFs just like they are now. So you'll have that opportunity in the field too when we publish these. So this next slide is another animation taking you through an example of incident position standards. So Toni mentioned in her presentation that we're developing incident position standards for all of our positions, and they work together with these next gen PTBs. So I wanted to share with you quickly kind of what they look like, what you can be expecting with those. So we'll go ahead and let it flip through that. So this example is for crew boss. And the incident position standards, as Toni mentioned, really explain how to perform in the position. How do you function in the position? What are the expectations, best management practices, et cetera. So our incident position standards include the leadership levels for the positions, resources on how to complete the task that's being asked. And they really just establish these national interagency standards for operating in the position. So they're meant to serve as a guide to help promote effective and consistent on-incident training for not only trainees, but to set that baseline for evaluators, and then also to support qualified individuals as a reference too. So not all of the tasks that are in the incident position standards are going to be included in the next gen PTBs. Only those tasks that are required to be evaluated on incident will be included in the PTBs. So the next gen PTBs really are meant to enhance, part of the way we formatted these and developed these are really meant to enhance the feedback that an evaluator provides a trainee, and then again to support those constructive conversations. So I mentioned one way of doing that is to for the evaluator to provide feedback for the trainee when they provide that does not meet the standard rating. So that's going to be really imperative to help trainees kind of grow in their roles throughout, you know, the tenure of their training assignments in that position. Again, these next-gen PTBs are designed to be used with those position standards. And again, it's to create that common understanding of expectations of how to operate in the position, and then also to help enhance that feedback and help support those constructive conversations, right? Because for the first time, you kind of have those baseline expectations that ideally the trainee and the evaluator have both reviewed, so they have that common understanding together. And then again, the next-gen PTBs are only going to include the tasks that are required to be evaluated for successful performance. So the classic PTBs really kind of over the years turned into kind of a laundry list of what you do in the position. And as Toni alluded to in her presentation, that's been replaced a little bit by the incident position descriptions. Those are the laundry list of what you do in the position. The incident position standards are how you operate in the position. And now we've been able to streamline these next-gen PTBs and really turn them into the true evaluation tool that they were meant to be in the first place. It's purely how you're evaluated and what you're evaluated on incident for that position. So I mentioned those task ratings earlier, but I wanted to kind of zoom in on that, and they're a little hard to read in that previous slide. So we have NO, no opportunity to perform the task, the D rating of does not meet the standards for the task. And then I mentioned earlier that if a D rating is provided, the evaluator is required to give some sort of written feedback on areas that the trainee can improve in that task. And then we also have the M meets the standard and E exceeds the standard as described in the incident position standards as well. And so we are including language in the next-gen PTBs that suggests that the evaluator also provides feedback to the trainee when they are given an M or an E rating as well. So if you've got a trainee out there that's really knocking it out of the park, let's tell them why, so that they're learning what they're doing right and then keep doing that right in their other assignments as well. So I think that that's going to be really important. This is a zoom in of a part of the position evaluation table. So I want to point out a few things here. So we are asking that every evaluator completely fills out the column corresponding to that training assignment. So there will be no blank boxes in the assignment numbers. So whereas in the classic PTBs, the evaluator may just not initial whether a task was completed or not, and they might leave it blank. There is not an opportunity to leave these boxes blank in the format of the next-gen PTB, though there is the opportunity to fill it in with an NO, no opportunity to, have observed the trainee performing that task. You'll also notice that there's 4 columns provided here for 4 assignments, but we are not saying that 4 assignments are required or not. That's up to the home unit. If additional assignments are needed, past 4, a second position evaluation table can be utilized and attached to the PTB, same as the evaluation record. So another key point with the next-gen PTBs here is that prior to certification, the trainee needs to attain a rating of M or E, so meets or exceeds the standards for all of the identified tasks. So it's fine to start, potentially you're not meeting the standards as you start for the first time in your trainee assignment, but you've got to work up to an M or an E before you can be certified in the position. So this slide is meant to demonstrate the connectivity between the incident position standards and the next-gen position task book. So you'll notice at the top of the screen, that is a statement from a next-gen PTB, a task statement. And below that is the same statement in the crew boss standards verbatim. And that is the way this new system is designed, is that all of our task statements are repeated from the incident position description to the incident position standards. Of course, those are fleshed out with how to operate in the position. And then where necessary to be observed and evaluated completing that task, that statement is repeated verbatim in the next-gen PTB. So we've denoted those statements that are going to be evaluated in next-gen PTBs in the position standards with that asterisk you'll see right above or right above, beside the E next to effectively, so that the evaluator and the trainee aren't like flipping back and forth trying to figure out, what needs to be evaluated and whatnot. So trying to make that clear for folks. So for these next few slides, wanted to just highlight some of the major changes between the classic PTB, the older PTBs, versus these next gen PTBs that are going to be coming out. So I mentioned earlier, we all know the classic PTBs, the evaluator would initial or not whether the trainee has completed a task. And now we're asking that the evaluators rating the trainee has been one of the biggest changes. The classic PTBs did not require feedback from the evaluator, whereas the next gen PTB is requiring that feedback for a does not meet rating. A couple other major changes are that in the classic PTBs, we had a few PTBs that were combined for similar positions. Probably the most well-known one was the suite of single resource bosses that were included in one combined PTB. We're not going to do that for next gen PTBs. There will be no combined PTBs. They're all going to be position specific. And I'll get into more of that with a few examples on how that might work or how that's going to work here in the next couple of slides. So the classic PTBs also allowed only use of one code for the type of training assignment where the task could be completed. The next gen PTBs are going to allow the use of multiple codes for the type of training assignment. And then we've also added a specific simulation code. So in the classic PTB, there was an opportunity for a simulation, but it was sort of buried under the O code. So you couldn't stipulate that it had to be a simulation. It was just under the O code. So now we've pulled that out so that you can mandate that it has to be or could be a simulation, could be performed as part of a simulation. So as far as the transition for the combined PTBs that I mentioned a few slides back, this is one of the more common questions that we get is how we're addressing these. So the next gen PTBs, again, are going to be position specific. So there's no more combined PTBs and that means, right, no more common tasks for multiple positions in one PTB. So currently combined PTBs will be split as positions undergo the IPTM process. So I'll use that single resource boss task book as an example. So when we start to publish the next gen PTBs, we're only going to start with two right away, and that will be crew boss and medical unit leader PTBs. Crew boss has been combined with the single resource boss in the single resource boss task book for a long time. So as we publish the crew boss next gen PTB, it will be standalone. And at the same time, we will also republish an updated single resource boss combined task book with all the other single resource boss positions, except for crew boss. Crew boss will be in the next gen format. The single resource boss combined task book will remain in the classic format for now. And as we work the single resource boss positions through IPTM, we're going to pull them out of that combined task book. So a question that we get a lot is, what about those common tasks that have to be evaluated, in the front of the classic single resource boss task book? So part of our transition plan, for example, if a trainee completes the next gen PTB for the crew boss position, so one of those single resource boss positions, and then decides to pursue another single resource boss position, such as heavy equipment boss, we'll use that as an example, they don't then need to go complete all the common tasks for all the single resource bosses at the front of that current classic combined PTB. They can go straight to heavy equipment because they've completed one next gen PTB for one of the single resource bosses. So for now, all that's available is crew boss. So when we roll all this out, we do have a fleshed out transition plan that covers a lot of these pretty common questions that we get. Another common question we get is, what if I've already initiated or started a classic PTB? Do I have to stop working on that and now switch over to the next gen PTB? No. If someone has started a classic PTB for a position and they have at least one initiated or documented assignment in that classic PTB, they should just finish out that classic PTB. There's no need to switch over to the next gen PTB when it's available. So there is no crosswalk between the PTBs. We're not asking red card committees to try to, merge experience between the two PTBs. If you have one assignment in the classic PTB, just continue with that and close it out, and you can still get certified that way. When we do publish the next gen PTB for a position such as crew boss, when we publish that next gen PTB, the classic PTB is no longer going to be available on our website. So that switch will flip when we publish it. But if someone's already started, they're free to go ahead and finish that classic PTB. So the next gen PTBs that are going to be available very shortly, we're hoping by mid-May, we'll publish the crew boss and the the RXB2 position task books. And then operations branch director and medical unit leader will follow a month to 6 weeks after that. So the best way to know when a next gen PTB has been published for a position is to sign up for our mailing list at nwcg.gov. And then you'll be notified when we roll each of these positions out. And then if you ever want to find a next gen PTB or a PTB for a position, the best place to look is the position page for that position that will have the incident position description, the incident position standards, 310-1 information for that position, and then the next gen PTB is there as well. These next two slides are repeats from Toni's presentation, looking at them through the lens of when the next gen PTBs are going to be published for these positions. So these positions were initiated in 2023. So we can start looking for next gen PTBs for these positions roughly early spring, I'm going to say late winter, early spring 2025. So we've got some time there. We are getting ready to kick off these 2024 planned positions here in the next couple of weeks. So these PTBs will be rolled out at various times as we work them through the IPTM process, but roughly be looking for next gen PTBs for these positions in fall of 2025. So Toni also mentioned that we just migrated our website and are working through a few bugs there, but very soon we're going to have an updated PTB page that will also link to any next gen PTBs that are available or that have been published. So on that PTB page on our website, we're also going to have that transition plan that I mentioned, that outlines the transition from the classic to the next gen PTBs. It'll have the summary of changes outlining the significant changes from the classic to the next gen PTBs. We'll have a short video demonstrating use of the next gen PTB and kind of how it fits in our system and dovetails with the position standards. And then we'll have quite a list of frequently asked questions on the next gen PTB to hopefully facilitate some of this transition. And again, it's going to be rolled out very slowly, only 2 task books initially, and we're going to just, roll them out over the next several years, very conscious that we are going to have 2 systems at play here, right? And I think the transition plan is fairly robust and is really going to help that go smoothly. At the same time that we roll out that updated PTB page with all of that information, we are going to update the PTB information language in the NWCG standards for wildland fire position qualifications, the 310-1. So we'll get that information, the PTB information updated there as well for everybody. So we've really been trying to time the update to the PTB page so all of that information is available for everybody with the publication of the crew boss and the RXB2 PTBs so that it goes smoothly through the field. So that is all I had regarding the next gen PTBs. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions from the group, if there are any.
I guess my question would be on the single resource boss. So with crew boss being a new next gen task book, if somebody has say an engine boss that they've completed, once the next gen comes online, you said that the common tasks, they wouldn't have to do the common tasks if they went from crew boss to one of the old single resource bosses. Is there any do they still have to do the full crew boss? Does that make sense in the new gen?
So if I'm hearing your question right, Sam, if they want to work through the next gen PTB for engine boss you're asking, when that's published, you're asking if they have to first work through the Next Gen Crew Boss task book?
Sorry, if they have completed, say, Engine Boss in the old position task book, and then in the new task, and they open up a new Gen Crew Boss book, are there any tasks that are not needed, being as they've completed the common tasks?
Great question, Sam. No, they would have to complete the entire Next Gen PTB for Crew Boss. And keep in mind with that answer, we're doing a lot of analysis to figure out like really what has to be evaluated for that position in the field via the PTB, right? Trying to make them pretty streamlined. So it's going through that, analysis work first. The other piece is if there's any kind of like duplication in task between, for example, here, the single resource boss positions, it's because it might be the same task on the surface, but you do it differently for that position, right? So it is imperative, that you do in this case, in your scenario, you would complete the entire Next Gen Crew Boss task book.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, no problem, Sam.
Thanks for the question. Are there any other questions out there that we can help with today? Okay, well, like most Fire Chat Fridays, this will be recorded and the recording will be sent out along with the link that was for the SMEs that was dropped in the chat earlier. I do want to give Katie a moment to leave us with any parting words if you have them, and then we'll sign off and wish everyone a great weekend.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks everybody for joining. Again, as within NWCG, we're really, really excited about this process and moving forward. And so looking forward to having continual engagement with groups. And if there's any questions or anything that we can do to help facilitate that, by all means, reach out. But again, thanks for taking the time. And as we made the pitch, please sign up to be a subject matter expert because your input really does matter. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.